I'm on a quest in Australia, our former British colony, with the fine Aboriginal comedian, Kevin Croppin-Yerry. Together we're examining myths and exposing some hard truths about the impact the British Empire had on this land and its indigenous people.
The British came to Australia and they brought with them the rule of law. And there's that old saying, isn't there? Possession is 9/10 of the law. Now, no one ever says what the other 10th is, but if someone's holding a gun to your head, you haven't really got time to worry about fractions, have you?
I think it's amazing. You go to a restaurant now in Australia, you open the menu, and instead of it saying, you know, we're a proud family of Italian Australians who make the pasta ourselves, it now says, this business acknowledges the people to whom this land originally belonged, or belongs. We thank them and we acknowledge them and...
Acknowledging the traditional owners of the land. But I worry it's tokenistic.
Right.
Because Australia is a very, very rich country.
Yeah.
But my people are so marginalised. But I think it's great to do because it's always a reminder that this is always Aboriginal land.
The idea of Australia being terra nullius, unoccupied land that can be owned by anyone, has been fought over for the best part of a century. It's been said British colonisers believed Australia to be unoccupied because they thought the few fish-eating natives they came across would be almost non-existent further inland. As we now know, this couldn't have been further from the truth. And the misconception set in motion a series of tragic events which even now, some 200 years later, are difficult to face up to.
I'm taking our inland to the bush to meet an elder who can show them our way of life on native land before the empire existed.
Before we start, do you know the difference between a welcome and acknowledgement of country?
People would understand their patch of country in a way that their neighbours might not.
That's right, exactly. Because we're born with understanding where our country starts, where it finishes.
So Kevin has as much to learn here as I do, right?
Yeah, I'd say so.
Because you're from out of town.
Yep, this is not my country. You look at Europe and all the different nations.
Yeah.
And then you got Africa. Well, that's how Aboriginal Australia is.
Yeah.
All the different Aboriginal nations.
Yeah.
This is pure white ochre, so I'm going to acknowledge we're on Gundungurra land. We pay our respects to elders, past, present and emerging, as they hold the Dreamtime stories of this area. Welcome to Gundungurra land.
Thank you. The thing about the relationship between First Nation peoples and the land is the thing that the colonists never understood.
That's right.
When you walk into a place like this, what are you looking for?
I'm looking for bush medicine.
Yep.
This is one here. This is a tea tree. We pull off the leaves, we crack that, and we smell. It's for anxiety, calms you down. Tea tree bark.
Yeah.
It's got antiseptic in it.
Right.
There's all these different stuff when you're looking around. This is classed as our fishing plant. If you put your hand and go down slowly, you'll see it's quite spiky.
Oh,
Just
yeah.
don't go too fast.
It's like Velcro.
Yeah.
What they did was crush the bark up, throw it in the water, and the little fish would come up and they go and then pull it out.
And the fish would stick to it?
Yes. They also put it between two trees and ushered birds into it.
Really?
Yes.
That's amazing.
I know. It's cool, isn't it? We have another one that is used as a snake whistler. That's a snake whistler. So you got to have a lot of spit in your mouth and
What
you
do
blow.
I do? Blow it?
Yeah, like...
All the snakes around here are going, who's that? What's happening?
I'm not going over there because there's people.
Yeah, exactly. That is amazing.
Yes. Two women go out. One stands behind a tree with a nulla and it's a big wooden rod with a big knob on top, and the other one would be blowing the snake whistler. Then when it comes, walk out and go whack and hit it on the head.
And it wouldn't occur to me to go whistling for snakes, if I'm honest with you.
Yeah, well, that's because you got shops you can go buy.
I've got shops, I can go buy fish and chips, yeah.
That's
exactly.
right.
Yeah, exactly.
Being here, I get it. Aboriginal tribes didn't want to overhunt any one area, as the land needs replenishing. So they were partly nomadic, going from one area to another and then back to the original area to allow the land to recover, only to return and find a bunch of colonists who decimated everything with their houses and livestock.
When they came in, they were given land or bought land, and then they fenced off the land. Now, once they fenced off the land, they fenced off the food. That brought the animals.
Yeah.
And then the Aboriginal people, or particular Gundungurra people, could be starving.
And disturb their way of life.
Right, yeah. And so what they did was then go and kill that sheep. And the repercussion of that, they were massacred.
By the early 1800s, violent battles between natives and colonists were on the increase. In a bid to keep expanding colonial farmlands and quell the unrest, the Empire relied on one man, British Army officer Lachlan Macquarie. Now, it's been said, and I quote, he was booze-addled, tight as a badger's backside, a financial fraudster, and riddled with syphilis. But that could just be hearsay. What we know for sure is he was the fifth, and according to the British, the most effective governor of New South Wales. It was his decisive military campaign in April 1816 that ordered troops to kill or capture any Aboriginal people they encountered.
I'm taking Al to a memorial site built fairly recently so he can meet Auntie Glenda, an elder with a personal connection to Macquarie and an atrocity that he was responsible for.
Well, lovely to meet you, Annie.
Yalangananga Walinuru. Welcome to my country.
Thank you for having us.
You're welcome.
So, Glenda, can you tell us the story of what happened?
Governor Lachlan Macquarie actually declared war on the native people. My great-grandmother, who is on my shirt today, was a survivor of the Abba massacre.
In the early hours of the 17th of April 1816, Governor Macquarie gave orders to clear the lands of Aboriginals. His punitive expeditions were a campaign of terror against any hostile natives refusing to submit to colonial rule. Macquarie's soldiers used dogs, horses and guns to hunt, trample and shoot at men, women and children. Any survivors were driven over the edge of the cliff top and into the cataract gorge below.
These orders were quite clear. Those orders were to hang the bodies of men in trees in order to scare everybody else. And their bodies were later decapitated and the heads were sent to Edinburgh.
God. Well, I think I'm speechless.
It is. It's a very sad and tragic thing.
We were fighting for our survival on our own country.
Yeah.
And fighting with spears against guns and trained soldiers.
Now, I have to ask, because this is what this programme is about, how do you feel about the British Empire now? This is more than 200 years ago, which doesn't make it any less terrible. What do you think?
It does affect generations after to know what happened.
And then for that to be denied since?
Yeah, I denied. They didn't even count Aboriginal people as human beings.
Over 140 years, 270 frontier massacres resulted in the horrific and violent deaths of defiant Aboriginal men, women and children. Some British subjects are only recently discovering their personal connection to a state-sanctioned attempt to eradicate First Nations people here at Appin.
We actually have someone who came to the 200th anniversary in 2016 who was a descendant of one of those soldiers.
Wow.
And she came here a little bit anxious about what sort of reception she got, but we took her in with open arms. Sorry.
No.
Because it was part of her journey in knowing what her ancestor had been and had participated in what happened here. Still keep in touch with her today.
See how amazing that is?
Incredible.
Yeah. I want to give you a hug
7
now.
years later,
Go
you
on.
give me a hug.
Mwah.
Thank you.
Yeah, deadly.
I get a hug too.
Why not?
Thank you.
No, thank you.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk to you
Oh, it's our pleasure.
and tell you my story.
I'm speechless, bro.
Yes.
I got to admit, that just then, talking to Glenda, is the hardest thing we've done. That was another level.
Yeah, some of these stories are real horrific, tragic, whether it be a order from Macquarie or clearing of farmland. They didn't see us as human beings.
Yeah.
They seen us as flora and fauna, and even sometimes as sport.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's just tragic. A lot of blood has been spilled in this country.
50 years after taking land and decimating the native population by around 80%, a doctrine was reinforced that stated Australia was terra nullius, unoccupied when first settled by the British. 57 years later, it was overturned as legal fiction. As yet, other massacre sites remain undocumented. But in 2008, there was a formal apology by the Australian government to the stolen generations.
As for your fella, Lachlan Macquarie, this bronze statue of him was unveiled in Sydney in 2013, 5 years after we got the formal apology. It reads, "He was a perfect gentleman, a Christian and supreme legislator of the human heart. Must have been another bloody Lachlan Macquarie."
It's very hard work being an Aboriginal person in this country. When you look at the truth of how much blood was shed and how Australia was made off the theft, first of all, terra nullius, the lies, the theft, the murder, the rape of our people, country. Of course I'm moved. It makes me emotional.
I found that memorial really, really moving. And the reason I found it really, really moving is because it's not in a major city for everyone to see, the way the statue of Lachlan Macquarie, who caused that massacre, is. And I found that moving, outrageous, and also something you could solve very, very, very simply. If you're going to commemorate him, you've got to commemorate the people whose lives he destroyed. You just have to. I can't understand why you wouldn't. I've noticed this in all the countries I've been to. Yeah, that is the British Empire that set the ball rolling, that set the tone, but actually the British Empire isn't the problem. It's how you face it now.
Yes. Yeah.
I'm not saying that to, like, get off the hook.
No, I exactly
Avoid
know what you mean.
responsibility.
It's about starting to acknowledge the atrocities in order for this country to move forward. And we are very, very slowly beginning to make good steps forward, but we're so far behind the rest of the world.